The title of this video is When Did Jesus Die? And we run a life group in our home with my wife and I every couple of weeks, and we've been doing a Bible study on the Jesus Bible, running through each chapter every week. And we got to chapter 21, and which is all about when Jesus arrives in Jerusalem and they start singing, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And 1/3 of the Jesus Bible, 1/3 of the gospel story is Jesus' final week, which is an interesting lesson in itself. And we got to page 240, which I personally thought was one of the most exciting fulfilled prophecies that I've seen in the Bible. And we're doing life group, and not everyone shared that same enthusiasm that I had, which is just interesting. We're all wired differently, and for me, I loved the numbers. I loved how that Daniel's prophecy was fulfilled to the day. Like, it was day perfect. He wrote his book 600 years before Jesus was alive, and that prophecy was fulfilled to day perfect. It was amazing. And that flicks my switches, and I go, yeah, wow, amazing. And I loved working that out, and yet other people didn't find it was very interesting. So what I discovered as we were doing that I just needed to probably explain in a little bit more detail than what you'll find on this book. But that's all the workings that you need to know of Daniel's fulfilled prophecy. So in short, for those who would love the Cliff Notes, what day did Jesus die? Right here, 31st of March, 33 AD. So if that's all you need to know, you can just swipe away and move on. Now, that date is based on the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar that we use today. But when you travel back in time, and if we're looking at dates prior to 1582, we transition from the Gregorian calendar to the Julian calendar. So the Julian calendar is the date that is always quoted and used prior to 1582, and they did it to make an adjustment. The Julian calendar was good, but it wasn't perfect, so they adjusted it in 1582, and sort of got adopted by the Commonwealth like in the 1700s, I think. And so if we were looking at the Julian calendar, Jesus died on the 2nd of April 33 AD. But probably the more accurate date to look at is actually, and to confuse things even further, is if you look at the Hebrew calendar, which is the more accurate one, and that was what Jesus' life was based on. The Jewish world was revolved around a lunar calendar instead of a solar calendar. Jesus died on the 14th of Nisan, which is the day of preparation, which is the day before the day of Passover, or when they had the Passover feast. So every year, 14th of Nisan is a good day to celebrate Jesus' death, and that changes every year on the Gregorian calendar. So that can change somewhere from March all the way through to April, and I don't know if it goes into May. It might do, but it is a big wide variety there. Personally, I celebrate Jesus' death at Easter. It's the easiest way. It's the day we will do it. Even though we celebrated on a Friday, Good Friday, Jesus actually died on a Thursday. And that became all important when we were trying to work out what year did Jesus die. So very, very confident that Jesus died in 33 AD, 99% sure. And we have two witnesses that help us get to that 33 AD. We have Luke in chapter 3 tells us that in the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, the word of the Lord came to John the Baptizer. And we know that is placed around 28 AD. So John had a bit of a ministry before Jesus started, and we know Jesus' ministry lasted 3.5 years. So that puts us nice and neatly in the beginning, somewhere around 32, 33, 34 AD. Now, one of the things that helps us is that we know that Jesus died on a Thursday, because he said to the Pharisees, the Son of Man, just like Jonah was in a whale for 3 days and 3 nights, so the Son of Man will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. The only way that you can be resurrected on a Sunday is that you have to die on a Thursday. So Jesus died on Thursday, and that we get 3 days and 3 nights. And if you're thinking to yourself, hold on, the next day was a Sabbath. How on earth is Friday's not a Sabbath, the Saturday's a Sabbath? And if you're thinking that, well, you're a genius, well done. For you who aren't thinking that or didn't know that, Jesus' Bible is a great information source for learning all those sort of little knickknacks in the Jewish culture. And you're right, Thursday, the next day was a high Sabbath. So the first day of unleavened bread was a high Sabbath, and then the next day was the weekly Sabbath, and then Jesus rose on the Sunday. The only years that the Passover or Day of Preparation happened on a Thursday were in 30 and 33 AD. The next one stretched too far out into the 30s, and it just didn't work. So Luke helps us pin down 33 AD, but Daniel does it day perfect. And this is one of the things that really just impressed me with how good God is and how he lines everything up perfectly, and he got it down day perfect. And it doesn't it requires some digging. I had to dig. It took me 40 hours of digging. So Daniel chapter 9 says, from the day that the decoration for the temple went forth for it to be rebuilt to the day the Messiah arrives, there are going to be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. I remember reading that going, God, why didn't you just say 69 sevens? It's why the complication? And I discovered that was actually all important. And I went through and I worked it out, and I spent like 40 hours trying to work out how it worked, and using every possible technique, trying to manipulate it, but not being able to. And I finally came to the conclusion, using Daniel's formula, that it was 33 AD. And I remember praying. I came to the end. I was giving up. I said, I'm not doing any more research. Something's wrong here. And I literally, this is the prayer I prayed. I said, dear God, you're so good, but you got it wrong. Jesus never died, and he can't have died in 32 AD. And I went upstairs and had a shower, and in the shower, God spoke to me so clearly. It was like a thought in my head, but it was a boom. And I suddenly realized, as he was speaking to me, I realized God speaks to me all the time. He speaks to us all the time. And it's just, how do I discern my thoughts from his thoughts? And I remember thinking to myself, how did I just think that? But the thought was, why did I say 7 sevens? And I answered myself, but I was actually answering God. And I said, 49 years is, nothing happened 49 years prior to Jesus dying. Nothing happened 49 years after the decoration went forth for the temple to be rebuilt. 49. Again, this is a great source for Jewish information. 49 years is a jubilee. I realized, it's a metaphor. It means 50 years. Because at the end of 50 years, debt is repaid, slaves are set free, land returns to its original owners, and I went racing downstairs, plugged it in, boom, day perfect. It ended up, working it all out, it ended up on Palm Sunday, the day Jesus came into the temple, where people came out and were singing, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Day perfect. It was amazing. So in short, which was using the Julian calendar, it was the 29th of March 33 AD, which ended up being 5 days later, 2nd of April. 33 AD is the day Jesus died in the Julian calendar, but we can celebrate it on the 31st. But my suggestion is we go to church on Good Friday and celebrate his death, and then go to church again 2 days later and celebrate his resurrection. Our God is so good. He got it right. I got it wrong. He got it right. And I'm very confident. 31st of March, 33 AD.